So, hello everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's fourth space, and thank you for joining us for today's event, The Iron Ring with Space Concordia. We are streaming to YouTube live from fourth space, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Here at fourth space, we collaborate with our university community by activating the research projects and initiatives across the university through daily activities. It is now my pleasure to hand it over to your hosts, Emily and Emilia.
Welcome back to another episode of The Iron Ring. I'm your host, Emily.
And I'm Emilia.
And today we are welcoming members of Space Concordia. So to start off, we have Christina Strutynski, the Vice President of Sponsorship for Space Concordia and Vice President of Events for Women in Engineering. We also have William Wells, a member of the Robotics Division. So thank you, Christina and William, for joining us today. So William, we want to get to know a bit more about you. Can you tell us your role and what are the missions of the Robotics Division?
All right. So currently I'm project manager, which is a recent change in the division, actually. For a while, I've been technical lead of the team, or I've been technical lead along with software lead. So kind of a current project right now is Beep. It's kind of transitioning into a new rover where we're getting like a new wheel design and tire design from a capstone team. There's going to be an overhaul in our electrical system and probably many other changes, certainly in software as well. Previously, I guess you asked about like previous projects too, right?
Whichever, whatever. Right. How long have you been part of the team, for example?
I've been part of a team since fall of 2019.
Okay. Wow. So I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of different projects, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mostly concerning the rover and our arm, which has pretty much been like the main project of robotics, especially the one that I would have worked on. But additionally, part of the team as well, the science team started taking on like an Arctic Trail project, which is like a research project that different university teams would get to take part in. And basically, there's a bit of an engineering aspect to it where some engineers would have to design like a drill to basically go and analyze bacteria and permafrost in the Arctic.
Wow. So you're like working with biology students as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a big part of a rover project as well, because the rover itself, your Beep, is supposed to be like a modular rover that we can have modules designed for and placed onto.
I have a question.
So like payloads.
What is the Beep?
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, Beep.
I have no clue.
I kind of glossed over that.
Slightly.
So essentially, we try to go with acronyms for rover names. So before it was Astro, which I can't recall the acronym for now, unfortunately, but that was the rover when I joined.
Okay.
And we try to kind of like go in alphabetical order, like names that go in that. So Beep is a bit of a silly one, where it stands for Beep Explores Extraterrestrial Planets.
Oh.
So
cool.
it's a recursive acronym.
Beep, honestly, it sounds cool. Like it's cool. I like that.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess that's the extent of it. We mainly kind of like our goal is to design around requirements for a competition called the University Rover Challenge in Utah.
Okay.
But we also aim to compete every year in the European Rover Challenge, which is in Poland, Kielce. And but the main competition that we design for is the University Rover Challenge. Okay. So we're given requirements and tasks to complete at the competition, and we design a rover and iterate our project every year to basically account for this.
So is it your entire division that goes together as a team to Utah?
Yeah, okay. Essentially. Hanksville, Utah, where the Mars Research Center is.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. We haven't gone since 2019, but we've gone to the European Rover Challenge this year. Or last year, actually, I guess in 2022.
So would you say that's like your most successful project yet?
I would say so. Like we had some hangups during the pandemic where like when it hit, we had difficulties working on the project. We weren't able to attend some of the competitions like for URC and stuff. But when we went to the European Rover Challenge, it was pretty successful. There was some issues we ran into with like customs getting the rover into Poland. And then like
I guess
getting home was
bringing in all this equipment that like people don't understand.
I was gonna ask, right? How do you bring it over to Europe?
Oh, that was the story. So essentially, we went with UPS to ship it internationally. Okay. So we had to go for small packages, which meant what we did was we split the rover into 3 packages that were kind of optimized in weight and dimensions for cost and for quick delivery for getting it there. So the initial plan was to ship it all the way to Kielce, like the University of Technology in Kielce, where the competition was taking place, and we were in contact with competition organizers there to kind of arrange like delivery of a rover and then picking up on our end to reassemble it. But we had a lot of customs issues with getting it, like once it got to Poland, where it got kept at a warehouse at the Warsaw airport.
Oh.
And in the end,
This sounds great, honestly.
Oh yeah. It was a bit of a time. We came to Poland early to account for reassembly of a rover before starting the competition.
Oh God, yeah.
But we only got the rover back out of customs, which we had to drive to Warsaw to pick it up from the airport instead of having it directly delivered.
A lot more effort on your end.
Yeah, for sure. And we didn't get the rover back until the evening of the first day of competition. So we had to have some of our tasks rescheduled, your challenges. And due to weather, a lot of them got canceled and we end up not being able to attempt one of them.
Oh no.
What were the problems with customs?
So yeah, part of it
But
is...
like, was it by train, plane, like?
Oh,
sorry,
major
not
customs.
train because I meant boat.
I mean, I feel like if you're the government and you have like big robotics coming through, you would check them a little bit. But like, I wonder if it's from universities, why they would be so adamant on it.
So part of it is initially we were going to go with like cargo shipment to ship the rover to like, it's usually like called air cargo, I guess, where normally businesses would use it just to ship like large packages. And we were going to ship the rover as a whole unit, like without any disassembly, just put into a large cargo box and have it shipped directly to Warsaw and then pick it up from there.
This is too expensive though, right?
Yeah, but it actually would have been surprisingly affordable, compared to small packages anyways.
Okay.
But we had issues where we had to get in contact with the local sales team at the Warsaw airport in a warehouse there. And we had issues actually getting in contact with them. And by the time that we found out, you kind of realized that we're going to the competition, we only had a month to get the rover to Poland. So
that sounds really stressful, honestly, from your end and your team. I'm sure must have been really stressed out during that little period there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was pretty stressful, but we managed to prevail, and we actually did pretty reasonable at competition. I feel like one task went especially well. The other two, we had some hiccups and issues, but overall we got to compete, and people and students on our team got the experience to go to the actual competition, which there was like 11 of us, including me.
How did you choose like from the group who got to go with you?
It was pretty much whoever wanted to come along.
Okay.
So anyone who was able to commit the time and willing to like take, I guess like a week or two from classes. I guess for most people going, it was more like a week off of classes because it was at the start of a fall semester.
Yeah, if it's at the beginning, I feel like it's not as bad, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's the myth of like, you don't start schoolwork until like the second week maybe of school, but like I feel, maybe that's not a good way to look at it, but still, just in general. But at least like, it still worked out. The competition, even if maybe some things didn't work out, you guys still went together. A great experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sure. That must have been awesome. Plus Poland, like when do you have the opportunities to really do these competitions and try these things unless you're part of a society like space, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I certainly don't think I would have ever got the opportunity to go to Poland at like my age and during my my time of study in university. So it's an amazing experience. It was very stressful, but very rewarding to actually get to go there. And like also we got to like present our ideas and our project to like professionals at the competition.
I'm sure you got to network a lot.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of networking. We got to like interact with other international teams and kind of see the differences in what they do versus what we do.
That too,
I guess,
different universities, the way that they interact with themselves. So there's a lot of universities that all do these competitions. So it's like around the world, really, you get to meet really a ton of people. And who knows, maybe in the future you might end up working with one of these people from another university, end up going abroad, you never know.
Landing a job.
Yeah,
that too.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah, and we were the only North American team to compete this year.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
That's even cooler, I find.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it was mostly like European teams that we were with. I think, I think it was pretty much all Europe and like parts of Asia as well that teams came from. So as far as I know, not as far as we know, out of the teams that competed in person at the competition, we were the only ones that came from like overseas.
That's cool.
So
and how many teams were there total?
There was 19.
Wow.
Okay, that's cool. At least you get a little bit of the edge, you guys coming in from like literally across the world. You're like, we're coming in, the only team from this area, and you guys got to do, but despite the customs problems, I'm sure, again, everything still went well. So at least, it is an experience that you guys really got to do as a team too. I'm sure it's a bonding experience for everyone too, part of this division, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I certainly got a lot closer with like a lot of people on the team that I went to competition with because like, we went through a pretty, not like, it was pretty stressful. It was very rewarding and it was overall a lot of fun, but it pushed like a lot of us to the limit probably with the amount of stress. We're going to like to a different, foreign country that we're not familiar with. None of us really spoke the language. So going in,
a little stress for sure.
Oh, for sure.
You guys are fine. You guys.
What do you find more rewarding? Is it like working on the rover and having it work here at Concordia with your team, or like going to competitions overseas?
I guess like it's very rewarding to work on it here and see it work at the university and to also show it off to other students. So it's hard to quantify that, I guess, but like it felt very different and something that I absolutely needed to do at some point to go to a competition and see the rover actually work there and to have a shot and see how it performs and then see like, oh, there's some areas that could be improved and like, here's what we can do. So the experiences we got from that was very critical for like the future development of our team, I guess. But in terms of rewarding, I guess, it was still very rewarding just to like be here. So I guess overall, like getting to work with other students here and see like a lot of passion in the same sort of thing that you have in the same project in different fields is something that's like, I wouldn't say it's more rewarding, but it's a great experience. It's a great experience. Yeah. So I guess if anything, that's a little bit more rewarding, I guess, overall, but.
As like team lead, how did you manage like the schedule and manage having like your team work together like cohesively? Because this is a huge project, right?
And I'm sure everyone with like their own time commitments, their own work, school, everything going on in their lives, I'm sure it must have been, you have to put a lot of, maybe not pressure on them, but also a little bit to kind of make sure everyone reaches their deadlines and whatnot. So how did that work for you? Try
to invoke excitement, I guess, in the project. So it's very hard to do that because in a student society, it's kind of like, everyone has their own sort of, not priorities, but like they have their own things to take care of, right?
Yeah.
So they have school, they have work, you're in, things to put food on the table, perhaps. And certainly like they have to kind of prioritize some things at times over like our society or club. But we try to invoke excitement where people want to keep involved and see the project prevail and succeed, I guess. So a big part of it is like keeping interest in what we're doing and then trying to keep things fresh for people and trying to give the opportunity for people to grow so they feel like they're progressing and gaining more knowledge and valuable experience that they can use moving forward.
That's really nice. I think it is valuable for at least students who, especially maybe not knowing what to expect joining a society like this, but then, you having been there for a few years now, you can really see the progression of yourself, I'm sure, too, and the people around you who have either been there just as long or maybe a little less or more, you never know. But it must be nice to really see everyone kind of grow collectively and see how the team just kind of improves all together.
Yeah, for sure. It certainly is. Like it's something I couldn't ask for better of coming to university because I joined like right in my first year where I came out of province. I had to do like the year zero that they call it here, your prerequisite courses, I guess, to before I would do like my actual engineering type classes. Mm-hmm. And honestly, joining space right away probably gave me like a huge head start in my degree. So
I would say like time management wise, socially, education wise, like just like it's like helps you be a more rounded person overall.
Yeah, exactly.
Joining a society for sure.
Yeah, like I'd be a nervous wreck right now, I guess, or even more of so actually talking on this podcast. But I feel like being being a lead and interacting with all kinds of different people and in different settings really helped me like prevail and prepare for things like this. So, yeah.
That's good.
So Christina, we'd like to know a bit more about you. So you're Vice President of Events for Women in Engineering, and you're also Vice President for Sponsorship for Space. So what do both societies offer, and why did you decide to also join Space? Because we know that you were part of Women in Engineering first.
Yeah, so both societies are very different. Mm-hmm. So Space Concordia is project-based. They have 4 divisions, as William has been speaking about robotics. I've been part of Women Engineering for 2 years now, and we try to promote women in STEM fields because we know it's a very male-dominant area. And so in Women Engineering, our purpose is to make events for mostly women and encourage them, empower them into STEM fields, go to high schools with our outreach team, and make university events with the events team. So it's very different. It's more, I guess, managerial-based tasks.
Yeah.
Whereas space, it's really like project building. But although I'm saying this, I'm part of the exec team. I'm not part of one of the divisions, so I still do like managerial work. So it's quite similar in what I do in the two societies, but the two societies are very different. What do they each have to offer? I mean, space, I think like William says, it's really like very passionate people that do extra work on their time off without getting paid. And they just constantly, most of them are in the lab, they're constantly working on different things on top of having probably a full-time course load in engineering. So definitely difficult, but definitely rewarding, as he said. So yeah.
Okay, so then in that case though, what advice would you give for someone who's looking into either maybe joining Society Concordia? You know, what would you tell them about space and what would you tell them about women in engineering? And no bias. I mean,
no bias, for sure.
No bias.
So I would say join space if you're passionate about space, obviously.
That's a good point.
They have 4 different divisions, which is cool. So you get to pick like which division you think which would be more appropriate for what you're passionate about. So there's space health, there's spacecraft, robotics, and rocketry. Lots of different projects going on. Choose the one that you would be most interested in, and don't stress about it. A lot of people who are not part of societies, they stress that they can't join because it's going to be too much with their school. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you put as much effort as you can. You just do your best. And so there's really nothing to stress about. The societies at Concordia are there for you to enhance your experience at university and to have fun. A lot of people forget that, it's for fun. And at the end of the day, competitions and things like that are extras and you want to perform in them for sure. But, it's not the end of your life. And it's really good for your networking skills. You meet a ton of people. It's good for your CV, good for your LinkedIn. People like that. They see that you're a passionate student, you're hardworking. And since I've joined Space, I've made so many friends. Lots of people in my classes now. We all study together. It's a really fun experience.
I feel like people forget that, when you're in a society, like it's not just, you're working, like you said, on a project and whatnot. Like there is a little community, even for us in women engineering, like I'm sure we're a group of, I think we're 17 to 20 people right now.
21.
21. We're 21? Okay, we're 21.
21 member just left, 20 now.
20 now? Okay, so we're 20. And just within those 20, like I know every time I walk around Concordia and I see them, it's always like just super nice, friendly. You meet a lot of different people and then through them you meet more people. And so I think it's obviously the same thing in space is you really get to interact. And like, I think a good point you bring up that a lot of people get like scared about when they hear societies is the amount of effort and the work it takes. But again, a lot of the time it's the effort that you are willing to put in. And I feel like people, especially young people, need to understand that,
I think it's about how like passionate you are about that topic.
Yeah, because you can be in a society and it's just not your, like you don't like it, and then you're not going to put in any effort into it because it's not your interest for us. Like I know I love to go talk to young people and try to get them to come into engineering, especially since a lot of young people don't get that opportunity a lot of times, with our outreach team that we have. But I feel like if you're exposed to different types of societies, you get to kind of see, oh, you know what, maybe I do have this interest in space, or maybe I do like the robotics, or I like the spacecraft and all of that, the rocketry, everything. But then you might realize like, okay, this is not for me, but I'll go maybe look at another society,
Yeah, I think women engineering, like join it if you like to create events, you like, marketing side, all those side, more project management type of things. And if you like doing really technical work, then definitely join space. But yeah, we've seen it, some members, they take part of it and then they're absent. Clearly, they're not that passionate. Other people who put in a lot of effort, they're very passionate about women engineering. They're always on doing different events and writing in the Slack and things. So that's really great to see. And yeah, like we have a lot of fun too. There's a lot of team bondings. It's not only about work.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people should know about that. You know, we
too,
go
for sure.
We're still students, right? We still have we still want to have fun. So we go to the bar, we go to the cottage. What else do we do? We do brunch. You know, it's really fun. I encourage all students to join societies. I think it really enhances your university experience. Honestly, when I started electrical engineering, I was really depressed. I was just going to class and it really sucked. And then I joined women engineering. I made friends, and it was like way better. And you know, it's a break from school.
It's a tough. Engineering is just a really tough program to be in, I feel like, and it could be, you know, sometimes for some people it may be really easy, but for some people it may be a lot more. You know, you need to put in a lot of effort. So it's almost when you start in. I remember I started during the pandemic. Well, right before the pandemic. It was 2020 in January. So I had 2 months in person, and everything just got shut down and like went online. And so I didn't really get a chance to really meet anyone in my program until I heard through a friend about women engineering, and then they were like, "Oh, this is a cool society. I feel like maybe you would like this. Like, try to see what it's about." And then I joined, and I ended up completely loving my choice to join. And you know, again, like you said, commitment. It's up to you what you position you want to be in. You have, you know, like you have the options to do kind of anything in the group, right? So I feel like, yeah. With that being said, though, for both, I know you guys kind of elaborated on this, but if you can say maybe your top three things that maybe Space Concordia has done for you that has enhanced your education or your experience at Concordia in general, like sum it into 3 points, both of you.
I guess I can go first. All right. So I guess like kind of in vein of what Christina said, is probably a lot of like the social aspect and networking for getting to meet like a lot of different people with good experiences and everything, and just learning from them and getting to like apply it immediately to something practical. And I guess that kind of follows into the second point, is like actually getting hands-on experience, which you may not get the opportunity to do in your classes, where like in the case of a rover, I probably would have never got to do like like as much hands-on experience as I have been able to with like robotics applications and stuff, your mechatronics. I got to actually go like hands-on again, the nitty-gritty of it, of like kind of how you would integrate software with like hardware, I guess, is something that I largely did for most of my time at Space Concordia.
I feel like even like most internships, you don't get the same hands-on experience that you do in like societies.
Yeah, for sure. As like a software engineering student, most of my internships I've worked so far, I'm sure it varies for like many people, but I mostly did like kind of just pure software development, where I would develop for, you know, some target hardware here and there, and like have to kind of interact with hardware to some degree, but not beyond just like writing software for it and then seeing it execute, I guess, rather than like seeing some form of physical,
like tangible. Like you can literally see it. Like, yes, you can see your program maybe run smoothly, but to actually be able to see something that you actually had a part in must be super, super cool in the end.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess a third one too is like, my third point would be like learning how to kind of pass this knowledge on. And like, because a big part of engineering is like learning from your mistakes, right? Yeah. And going from there, where like what didn't work, what went wrong, and what can you document to make this better? What can you pass on to like new members, I guess, that joined the team? So it's a way of learning, and I'm sure you would see that a lot in like women in engineering, where people that work on their projects or do their own sort of thing there would like learn a lot from more experienced members of the team.
Of course, it's always that way. I feel like it's a great. You're right. Even if you're new, you'll still learn something, and then you can pass it on to the next new person, and it's a little circle that feels nice, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of goes back to like point one. So I kind of made like a bit of a cycle.
Literally,
then. Yeah.
No, that's good. Yeah. What about you, Christina?
Honestly, I would sum it in one word. I'd probably say that space gave me more happiness, because it kind of made my degree feel rewarding, because I see like different space projects going on, and I'm like, okay, this is really sick. Like, you can do this.
Like your degree is actually being used in like different ways, in tangible ways.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'm like, oh, I can, do so many things with my degree. So, when you're depressed and doing your courses and you see this, you become happy. So I also met some people that I really like on space, and that we had lots of fun together. So I would just say in one word, happiness.
Do you think that like you'll join like a project in the future?
I thought you were gonna ask me a third society. I was like, no.
No, I don't know how much time management lesson you have, but
it's no more.
Kudos to you if you can manage 3 societies. Jesus.
What was the question? Sorry.
Would you join a project?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I think definitely in the next year, I'd like to focus more on doing a project because I think it would be very good for not only for the industry and the experience, but just learning about what you can do with the space industry more in depth. Like right now, I'm just seeing it from the exterior, but if I can work on a project, that would be awesome. So yes, I'd like to go towards that.
That's nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
So before we bring in our other guests, does the robotics division have anything coming up? Are there events or opportunities for new students?
Kind of anything for, this is your hook, like bring people in.
I would say there's going to be a lot of opportunities with like new things to work on with the rover. So requirements always change in some ways each year for the rover in like small ways, or we kind of do like a change in requirements or scope to account for issues that we may want to fix or things that we can do better with the rover. So a big part of, in terms of events, is that we would be aiming to do another competition this year, which would probably primarily be University Rover Challenge. That would be something to like look forward to, is like, if you want to get involved in trying to get the rover prepped and ready to go for going over to Utah and see how it can perform, or if you just want to like work with members that have the same passion in robotics and kind of learn from us, I say go for that. Probably a big part of things is like just innovating on what we currently have, or maybe even re-innovating like a new idea of a module that we can put on the rover, because it's a modular platform that's designed to be able to attach upper things onto and to kind of like be able to hot swap out new things and so on, like the wheel capstone that I mentioned earlier, where we have like a wheel redesign and tire redesign. There's always going to be something like that every year, where there's probably going to be like some major redesign that you can take part in. So especially this year, things are quite set in stone for things, but like there's always something exciting, like putting new sensors on the arm, for example, to do something called like inverse kinematics, which is a more advanced control scheme that we can use with the arm to make it a lot easier to control. That's something that we're doing this year, and that requires a good bit of software and like knowledge and know-how to get something to work well and fluently, I guess.
So can students join anytime between now and the end of this semester?
When is the competition? So people maybe, if they want to think about it, like, do you know more or less when the timeline is?
The timeline would be like, I think the competition is like June 5th.
Okay, so summer.
Yeah, so summer. So like normally we would leave like the end of May to like drive down to the competition with the rover and like a van or something. And a lot easier than flying it out to Europe, I guess.
Nice,
Another reason to join, you get to travel.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people, like, you get really cool opportunities to go kind of in different places, because it's not only like, obviously we have here, Canadian Space Agency that can help in a lot of other resources, but you get to actually go clearly globally, like Europe as well. You can really go anywhere, so that's a really
Didn't you go to Florida?
Yeah, so Spacecraft had a little issue with their project, which they'll talk to you about.
Yeah,
but Florida is postponed
specifically
to July.
Okay, it's postponed to July.
Okay, so at least
we'll need a podcast part 2 to let you know.
So you see how everything went.
Florida.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. We'll organize that. Make sure for next time.
So we want to just advertise a bit of women in engineering
as well, of course.
What events do women in engineering have, and how can students participate?
Of course. So how could you participate? So we have our elections in around May. If you want to join, I definitely encourage you to join. It's a little stressful, I guess. There's an interview, but it's still, it could be. I was stressed, but you know what? You just be yourself. It's not like the same interview where you're trying to get a job.
No.
It's just students. So you'll see at the meeting, it's very chill. So
I guess, like you said, though, it's also seeing if they're passionate about like what our initiative is too. So it's not like we're drilling you about your skill set and like what can you bring to the table. It's very
it's like, why you want to join.
Exactly.
You got to show you're passionate. So that's one way you can join. Another way is you can be an ambassador, which you can join anytime in the year, and you can take part in any events. You can see what we do, and you can see if you actually want to be an exec for the next year. And the events we're doing, well, on Thursday, we have the Desjardins event, which is at 5 p.m. in Hall 655. Bombardier is going to be there to talk about their company and their different positions, which is really awesome. And then in 2 weeks from now, we have our biggest event of the year, which is the Power Networking. So students will be able to come with their CV, dress nice, and just network with all these companies. We have Google, we have CAE, we have MDA, Broccolini, We have, and much more. If I name them, we'll just be here till tomorrow. But we have all the big tech companies. So
so you should come.
You should come. You should sign up. There's going to be really good food. There's going to be alcohol, non-alcohol, just everything. Everything good.
Everything to entice you. Like just
everything
like
good.
We have everything.
Exactly.
Like everything.
Exactly. So yeah.
Well, thank you both for being part of this conversation. It was really, really great to hear about, your experience in the division, your current experience now as a VP sponsorship. We'd like to now welcome Jonathan Bissonnette and Rym Chaid. Am I saying that right? Okay, please come sit with us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Little change right now. Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going great. How is it going with you guys?
Good.
Good. Of course. Okay. So you're part of the Spacecraft division.
I am.
And you're the head of the Space Health division.
I am.
You are. Perfect. Okay. So we'll start with Jonathan.
Sure thing.
Can you explain your role as well and the missions that your division is really focused on, working on, all that good stuff?
Sounds good. So currently I'm the mechanical lead for the spacecraft. So I joined, I think, a year and a half ago under you can't see him now, but he's right here. He was my old lead.
He's smirking for anyone, and he's really appreciative of this call out.
Very much so. He wanted me to shout him out. And now he's our project manager. But basically, I joined the team. I became a mechanical lead 9 months before the actual due date. So basically, I'll just explain what the project is, so people understand. So Spacecraft was taking part in the Canadian CubeSat project, which is basically a project to build a CubeSat around all of Canada. And basically, we had 14 other universities, not including us, that were building a CubeSat to send to outer space, whatever the payload may be, whatever the purpose may be, basically for the whole idea of learning on how to build a CubeSat and what's the process to building that.
Okay. Do you want to explain a bit what the CubeSat is exactly?
Yeah, sure. So the CubeSat we're currently working on is it's called SC Odin. It stands for Space Concordia Orbital Dust Imaging Nanosat.
Okay.
Really trying to get those words out, but so basically the whole point of this CubeSat is to have a payload. The payload itself is pretty much the function of the CubeSat. So we have two payloads. The primary payload is a camera that is attached to, so when you have a CubeSat, you can have different sizes of CubeSats. So ours is a 3U, which means it's 3 units, which is pretty much 3 cubes. Our first U is the payload, which is a camera that takes pictures of a specific part of an Argentinian desert. I honestly don't know how to say the desert or where exactly it is, but basically, it orbits at the same orbit as the ISS, and it takes pictures of a specific lake/desert. It's a lake next to a desert, and the data that we get is actually AOD, which is aerosol optical depth. Okay. Basically, trying to see how many particulates are in the atmosphere exactly at that position, and basically we receive that data and. We receive it through our ground station here, and we're supposed to send it to another university for them to make climate models. So that was the main payload. Our second payload is actually to understand how radiation affects components on a CubeSat, whether it be electrical or structural. Okay. Mostly electrical. I'm not too familiar how that works specifically, because it's not my division, but
not your lead.
But it's very interesting, and currently that's the project we're working on, and we may potentially have another project coming in the next couple months once we finish.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how is that? How do you feel being now the lead, the mechanical lead in this position? How does that make you feel, and how does it feel with the team? Your dynamic with everyone. How's that?
So when I first became a lead, it was definitely daunting because you pretty much, so you're a member first and you can basically put in as much time as you want. Mm-hmm. And at some point when you become a lead, it's you take on this huge responsibility. You don't really want to let anyone down. Okay. So
that internal pressure kind of thing.
Yeah, there's an internal pressure. Yeah. So at that point I was probably putting in 5 hours per week. I don't know. I wasn't helping as much, but at some point, I became the lead because, our dearest member right here was leaving and he needed a replacement. And at that point, I remember this was like right before the summer started. And at that point, I was starting to put in like 30, 40 hours per week, pretty much like a whole job.
Full-time job.
Yeah,
fully.
full-time job, plus having another job on the side as well.
Plus being a student afterwards?
This was during the summer, so I wasn't taking any classes, but I was working like...
Still, if you're still working and you're doing this also full-time.
Pretty much like an 80-hour week.
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds good.
How much sleep did you get?
Not too much.
Yeah, I'll take that.
But
not too much.
Luckily, it was 2 different jobs. So it's basically we had engineering working on this project, but the other job was working at a restaurant. So I kind of got the like social aspect of like, just anyway, being at Space Concordia, it's very social because you're just constantly working with people. But yeah, I started taking like 40 hours per week, pretty much on average. I wouldn't say specifically the number, but it's because when I became lead, I actually became lead towards the end of the project. So it was a lot of stress to become a new lead at this point in the project because this had to be done at a certain time.
The timeline was set already in stone, kind of thing.
Luckily, we had help from companies. The Canadian Space Agency was helping us, and they're the ones pretty much like are the authority on this project. So they decide. Well, they kind of helped us like push some deadlines if we needed some help. But it was pretty intense. But once I became a lead, you just become a little bit more comfortable and kind of confident. Especially in the beginning, you're not really too confident. You're like, why am I here? You know. But at some point, you keep going through the day-by-day process, and especially everyone at Space Concordia is like super nice, super friendly, very willing to teach you anything that you don't know. And throughout like this process of becoming lead, now I'm very close to the main, like a lot of the leads in Spacecraft, and I definitely feel a lot more comfortable. I didn't really know too many people before I became lead. Like I had like the division, but like now I know most of the people in Spacecraft, and like, yeah, it's been a nice, wonderful journey.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
I do want to hear about your journey, Rym. Just a little bit, you know.
Yes,
Please talk about, you know, what your role is also, and how that's impacted your life as well. So please.
Yeah, of course. So actually, I guess I'll start with a fun fact. I joined Concordia University to be a part of Space Concordia.
Really?
That's how I chose my university, because I got to know Space Concordia, well, at the time in 2017, the current team of Space Concordia, and I was like, I want to go where these guys are. And so that's how I became part of Space Concordia. I originally joined the Rocketry division, which sadly is not here today, but guys, definitely check them out. They're doing some insane things. But I decided to leave the Rocketry division to focus my time on building the Space Health division with the original team.
So you were part of the original team then?
Yes, I joined the first day that we voted to become a division.
Ooh.
And I've spent the whole of my undergraduate career building the team and working with the new team that we have right now.
Wow, okay.
And so, of course, I'm the head of the Space Health division.
Yeah.
We have 3 projects currently running instead of 1. And it's a bit of a different division. We're not competition-based, we're research-based, and that means that our projects don't have a 1-year life cycle. We have multiple years life cycle, so we can easily hit the 5 years on one single project. And that's the main reason why we have more than one project, because if you have new members that want to really spend time on a project, but the project has been going on for 4 years, 5 years, we want to give them the opportunity to also build their own project and have something that they're proud of when they graduate. So that's what we do at Space Health. And I guess I can talk a little bit more about Space Health itself, because I know there's a big bias about Space Health, and especially with the word health. People think that we just do, life sciences and bio, and, we're part of Space Concordia. Majority of Space Concordia members are engineering students. I am personally in engineering. So there's this little bias, but space health doesn't stand only for life sciences. It's basically the mix of space engineering and space medicine coming together.
Okay.
So we have medicine, we have microbiology, we have engineering, and we have biotechnologies.
Okay.
And so the goal of the division really is to study and build and develop biotechnologies that are going to be helpful for the life and survival of humans in space, with the new Artemis mission going to the moon and the Mars missions. And the reason why we need it for space is because right now on the ISS, it's pretty much 20 minutes to 3 hours, depending on where you are, to come back to Earth. So if you have a medical emergency, it's doable, you know?
Yeah.
It's doable. If you go to Mars, it's a 3-year process.
Yeah, it's not very doable.
So you need to be able to have autonomous technologies and remote biotechnologies as well. So that's what we're studying. And we also have an Earth aspect for this, and we're studying biotechnologies for remote communities.
Okay.
And so here on Earth, this is one of the main goals of Canada, and the Canadian Space Agency has published a beautiful article last year about this, stating that we want Canada to become the #1 leader in space medicine in the world. And so, you know, it's very good because when people think about space, they think about rockets, they think about robotics, they think about satellites, which are extremely...
Spacecrafts.
Spacecrafts.
which are really great parts of the space industry. But at the end of the day, if you want to go to space, you have to make sure that the humans are healthy.
That's a very good point.
And stay alive. And by health, I also want to point out that we don't do just physiology. There's a very big importance of health that people don't talk about is mental health. So we also study psychology in space. Yes. And one of our next projects is going to be psychology. Right now we're doing the preface of it.
Okay.
So the goal of the Space Health Division is really to make sure that we send humans that are going to be healthy, and we make sure that they come back healthy to their families here on Earth.
Because I've heard that like when astronauts come back, they have like issues with their mental health and like their
even their physiologies afterwards. It's not the same when you spend that much time in space.
Absolutely. Actually, in the space medicine world, there's a sentence that says space is trying to kill you. And it's very true because every single system in your body is affected by
it's not meant to be in space.
Exactly. We're not meant to be in space. So obviously space is actually trying to kill us. And our goal is to be able to go to space and come back healthy.
Okay, but that's a very good goal. And I think that a lot of people, you're right, when you think of Space Concordia, I know when I first heard of the society, I wasn't automatically assuming that I thought about it in rockets, spacecrafts, robotics, all of that. But, you know, I didn't think that there was this new aspect into it. But you're right, you know, you can have all these things in space, but if you have the people who are able to go up there and they're not healthy, then what's the point? There's really no point in the end.
Yes,
but it's,
go for it.
It's a rather new division, right?
It is actually. That's where I was going at. We've only been existing for 3 years now, so we're the newest division of Space Concordia.
Okay.
And we're not just new at Space Concordia or at Concordia University. We're the space health industry is completely new. We've only been existing for barely a few years, so everything that we do is very, very innovative, and that means that, you know, we're learning at the same time as our members are learning. We're working with doctors that are learning with us.
That's really cool.
It is. It's very good. It's very good. And like I mentioned, we're working with the Canadian Space Agency. And so our role in this is we study what the Canadian Space Agency believes are the most important aspects and the most urgent aspects to study when we talk about space exploration and human aspect of it.
Okay.
So, for example, if the Canadian Space Agency says that, hey, if you want to go to space, you need to make sure that their cardiac system is healthy, then this is what we're going to focus on. And another fun fact, the Space Health Division of Space Concordia is the first division in Quebec that studies space health. And if I'm not mistaken, to this day, we're still the only division in Canada that is a student society that focuses on research for space health.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Good
Impressive.
for you. Thank you. It's like the other side's like, listen, that's cool, but we do some cool stuff too. Which also, speaking of though, who would be the type of people to join both of your divisions? Who maybe, you know, if they're more on the technical side, I'm sure on this side there's a lot of different opportunities too. So who would be your like target person, or who would you want to kind of be involved in either either division, sorry?
That's a good question, because the actual spacecraft team is actually not just engineers. Literally anyone can join Space Concordia. Like,
really?
We have no bias. So basically, we have a project management team. So they don't really have to understand the technical. They really just have to like manage the team, like schedule, network, be able to
be business students.
Exactly, kind of they could be honestly, and they just have to like talk with companies, talk with the CSA, make sure that everything is on track. And also, we have like an internal team, which is the team that takes care of events. We have an HR person. She's in psychology.
Even HR person. This is a very high level society over here.
It's pretty well organized.
Does this always exist, like the organization of space?
Yeah, how long has it been around actually for?
10 to 12 years.
Space Concordia?
Yeah, in general.
Like 2010, I think.
I
don't know the specific number.
I think it's the 13th year this year. If I'm not mistaken.
Part of the team for 3 years, and then like you got all the information right now.
Exactly. Actually, I think it started with Spacecraft, and then we went the Robotics, and then there was Rocketry, and then Space Health.
Slowly started like diffusing into other.
Exactly.
Better for the last. That's for the last.
Best for the last.
Who knows? Maybe there'll be another division.
Okay. But so literally anyone can join, and if you want to be working specifically on the project, obviously you can literally know nothing. Like when I joined, I literally knew nothing. It was very daunting. You just join and you're like, okay, can you so basically when you join, they give you an intro task. They tell you like you have to do this task, whatever it may be for the division you're trying to join. And you basically do this task just to see if you're really willing to actually devote your time to working on it. Once you finish the task, you become part of the team. You can literally put 5 minutes per week or like me, 40 hours per week on the project. It really depends on how much you're willing to learn. Kind of like what Christina and Will were talking about.
Yeah.
But like literally, I joined Rocketry first, like Rym
Seems a
here.
common theme over here. Yeah, the rite of passage
I joined
for going to
Rocketry,
space.
and I decided. Well, I still worked on it a little bit, but I decided that
Switch it up a little bit.
I guess switch it up, but I didn't really have like a specific passion for either one. I just wanted to keep doing space stuff. And I joined Spacecraft, and then it just happened to be that I worked more on it. I think I was just more confident in myself, and I would just wanted to work on the task more. But yeah, you can literally know nothing as long as you're willing to devote the time and effort to literally learning. That's all we need from any member. And yeah,
that's nice. So then, what about Space Health now?
I guess maybe before I explain what you need to be a member, I can talk about what do we do and what are our projects.
Actually, that's a good point. Let's do that.
So I've explained what's the mission and the goal of Space Health, but how do we do that? We have 3 long-term projects, and we have a few more short-term and precise adventures, I'll say.
Adventures, I like that.
So the first project, we call it Project 1.0, very easy. We're studying the immunology system of astronauts. So when you go to space, you send astronauts to the ISS, they come back. What are the changes that have happened because of exposure to long-term microgravity?
Okay.
And to do that, we work with microfluidic chips, which, if you don't know what it is, think a lab, microscopic level, on a chip this size.
Interesting.
Yes, kind of like a credit card or a cell phone.
But it has all the capabilities of like a lab, like every.
Well, it's microbiology actually.
Okay.
So when you do the analysis, that's where the lab comes in place.
Okay.
And so for this project, we have 3 steps of the project. First step is ground testing. We're working with random positioning machines to simulate various gravities. So you have the lunar gravity, you have Mars, you have Earth, you have microgravity around the ISS level. And we study the changes in the gene expression based on those different gravity exposures. And then once we have the analysis and the results from the ground experiment, we also have 2 other steps of the project, which I guess are a little bit more exciting. The first one is a collaboration with the Rocketry division. Yes, so the Rocketry, spoiler alert, the Rocketry division is working very, very hard to send the very first student rocket to space.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, liquid-fueled.
Yeah, liquid-fueled engine.
Wow.
They're doing an incredible job. And we're tagging along. We're sending our Project 1.0 as their payload, as one of their
That's really cool.
payloads.
So you guys get to really actually work together within the divisions too now. And
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes, because at the end of the day, we have divisions, but we're still Space Concordia as a society before anything else.
Big happy family all together.
Unless money comes into place. It's Hunger Games.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure I don't know if we were allowed to really ask about all the funding you guys get, but like you guys, it's all split on based on your projects and everything you guys have.
Yes, well, we have the executive council. I'm part of the executive council. There's Tim here that's part of it. But we basically do our own individual division sponsorships.
Okay.
And we also have Space Concordia sponsorships. So it's at the end of the day, we're still Space Concordia Society before anything else.
Yeah.
So we're tagging along with this, and we're going to be sending our payload to space, which is incredible to collect data because it's going to be actual space.
Actual data, like real life, like you did this and now you get to actually see.
Yes, and it's multiple years of work, so it's so gratifying at the end to say, hey, I've spent so much time working on this, but at the end of the day, we have something real. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And the third step, which actually is going to come because of a change of plan before the second step, we've been selected. We've won a competition of SEDS Canada. You know SEDS Canada.
Yeah. Yes.
SEDS Canada.
For those who don't, though, can you explain a little bit just what they do?
So SEDS, I believe, stands for the Students for Exploration and Development of Space, and it's an international. Hi, Amy. It's an international society. We're working with SEDS Canada, and their goal is really to promote space for students. And they have a competition, which is a parabolic flight competition. And for those of you who don't know, a parabolic flight is basically you go on a plane, and the plane flies in parabolas. So you go poof, poof many times. And when you go up and down, you experience hypergravity. If you want, picture fighter jet pilots when they're accelerating, like pushed there. This is what hypergravity is. And when you're at the top and the bottom of the parabolas, you experience microgravity. So that's when astronauts are floating in the air. And so we actually have been selected. So we're one of 4 teams in Canada that are going to go in a parabolic flight.
That's really cool.
Yes, it's really exciting.
I've heard about this from like people who are either very, very rich who get to go on those like cool like experience. I don't know how much that costs, but I just know that it's not for the normal person. Yeah. So like the fact that you guys get to do that is so cool.
Is this the whole team, or am I allowed to join?
No. He's going to join Space Health.
Like, wait. Now I want to kind of go on this. How can I come?
So it's very expensive to go. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's around minimum $10,000.
That's what I'm saying. I heard about something like that. Per person.
Per person. And this is just to fly. We're actually flying, but also doing research. So we're flying for a purpose. It's
not just for fun.
Exactly. We have only 2 people per team that are able to fly, the mission specialist, and we have 2 backup mission specialists. Which, if they really, really, really want to go to microgravity, I guess they can just sabotage their mission specialist and go instead of them. Okay. Hopefully that won't happen.
Nger Games also for this, and it seems that way.
But thinking about it. But we were supposed to go last summer, but unfortunately we had a mechanical failure for the plane. Oh. So, and it's a very big lesson, I think, because this only happened 5 days before the flight. Mind you, we've been working on this for 2 years.
That's
yes. So
stressful for sure.
It's very stressful. It's very frustrating because, you can't back out. You already have, it's in Calgary, by the way. So you already have all your tickets. You have the hotel. You have the whole team coming, 6 people coming. And then they tell you there's a mechanical failure in the plane. And it's a very big lesson and a good reminder that, you can work as hard as you want. You can do a lot of progress, but at the end of the day, there are still things that are out of your control.
Yeah,
and this is exactly what the space industry is. And this is why you always have a lot of scrubs for rocket launches and like satellites. There's always something that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And so we had 5 days to really come up with a brand new mission and do something of our trip, which I can talk about it later. But yeah, that's project 1. Project 2, we're studying the cardiovascular system of astronauts. So the heart and how does it change in space? A fun fact that I know a lot of children love to learn about. Your heart is oval, right?
Yeah.
And so when you go to space and you have long exposure to microgravity, your heart shape changes and becomes completely spherical.
Really?
Yes, it does.
I would think it would be the opposite, no?
You would think it's the opposite, but it's not.
Since there's no gravity on your heart.
Actually,
yeah, I would think it would expand, no?
It changes and it rotates, actually, because your heart it's not just linear. So it rotates to a complete spherical ball, basically. And that changes everything in your body because, well, everything is based on your heart.
Of course.
Yeah, on your heart and your blood flow.
The oxygenation, everything is just all flowing through that. So that's not a good thing.
Yeah, there are a lot of changes. Actually, fluids don't do well in the body in space, if I may say so.
Okay.
And when you're floating in microgravity, well, you don't have any up or down or directions when you're floating.
No,
and so your body is a little bit, oh, what's going on? And so your fluids all go up to your head. And it's very, very stressful for the body because you have this huge pressure and tension in your head.
Yeah.
And a lot of astronauts can go blind, which I'm not trying to scare you if you want to be an astronaut. But that's the reality of space is trying to kill you, and we have to study space medicine. It's very important.
But I guess that's why like exercise is so important when you're in the
absolutely
when you're in space, because then it allows for better flow of blood and all that.
Yes, it's for the muscles as well and the bones. The muscles atrophy, you lose bone density. Like I said, everything is affected by space travel. So that's project 2. We're
Quick
building.
question.
Yes.
Is it like required for you to work out in space?
Yes, it's
How
mandatory.
do you work out in space?
So it's very, very fun.
Really?
Yes. So you actually have to work out, I believe, 2.5 hours every single day. And you have a very, yes, you need to be fit.
Cardio must be great.
Yes. And, you think 2.5 hours, you're going to be super fit, but actually it's just the minimum to keep you healthy and alive.
So if you want to actually be fit, you have to do more than that.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
whoa, it's a lot of workout.
And it's very funny I'd encourage everybody to just look at videos of astronauts working out, but you're strapped to the machines. So you can do running, you can do bicycle, you can do lifts as well.
Cool.
It's very, very fun.
But how would you do weights if there's like
it's not
no,
heavy.
if with no you know what I mean?
Since zero gravity. so
Yeah,
how
like
is
how would you actually like?
I'm not sure, but I think it's the machine itself.
Oh, it's
that
probably
is,
okay.
Yeah, and I know you're strapped. You have to be strapped because obviously, you're pushing something. You get
Yeah,
pushed, it gets
yeah, of
pushed.
course. You can't like run if you're not in a solid position. Right?
Yes.
Must be hard to keep the good formation in space, no?
It's I like that you're talking about how do you do exercise in space because Project 3.0 is actually we're using this knowledge. Yeah, we're using this kind of idea of what astronauts are already using in the ISS. ISS stands for International Space Station, by the way. All the current straps and systems that they already have, and we're trying to work with this. And so Project 3.0, which is our last project, is very closely related to Project 2.0. So like I mentioned, Project 2.0, we're building a heart simulator to study what are the changes in the heart and the cardiovascular system, and some of the pathologies that have been mentioned to be correlated to exposure to microgravity, long exposure to microgravity. Okay. And so Project 3 is, now that we understand a little bit the heart, how do you do CPR in space? So cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
Yeah, you just get,
Exactly.
So that's kind of important also.
Yes.
I feel like that's a good point.
When you're on Earth, for those of you who don't know, when you're on Earth, if you want to perform CPR, you have to use the person giving CPR, their person's weight, and you're applying on the torso of the patient, maybe. And so you need weight. It's a crucial part of CPR. And so if you have a cardiac arrest in space, how do you do? And you need CPR, how do you do? Well, currently there's no proficient way of doing it. So if we want to do, longer missions like Mars or the Moon, we need to have an idea with this. And also something that, I want to raise awareness about is we're living in a brand new age of space travel where we have space tourism.
Yeah.
Yes. And that means that it's not going to be always just space for the fittest, space for the strongest.
For those who can afford it.
Yeah, for those who can afford it. But that means that, you can go to space and have medical issues in the future.
I mean, that kind of seems like the person who's going to send themselves to space if they know they have a medical issue. I feel like that's like, if you're going knowing that you will maybe not do well, that's kind of not smart, in my opinion.
It is, but here's the thing. By having a condition, by not being super healthy, doesn't mean that, you cannot go to space. So the criteria right now for astronaut selection, you have to be very healthy. There's no exception because you're working there. And if you're not healthy, you're going to be a hazard for yourself, for the crew, and for the whole mission. So you really have to be healthy. If you're going, in a hotel in space, and maybe in 10 years or in 20 years, as long as you're not at high risk of, dying in space, then technically you should be able to go there. And the thing is, like I mentioned again, space is trying to kill you. So you don't have to be very unhealthy to not be to be at high risk in space. It can be just one of us going to space and suddenly something happens and you need medical emergency.
What do you do?
What do you do? Exactly.
So you don't think there will be like requirements, let's say if there's like a space hotel in the future, like?
Yeah, I think there will be a minimum. You have to have a minimum because you have to sustain the space flight. So there has to be a minimum. But I think instead of the idea, at least in the space medicine world, and in this commercial and tourism space industry, is not limit the people that can go, but push the limits of medicine and of space travel so that everybody can go.
Different perspective.
Exactly.
Yes,
I think that's the big idea of space, is that we want space to be for everybody. So I'll wrap up a little bit our project. So project 3, we're building an assistant device for CPR.
Okay.
So we call it the CPRAD, CPR assistant device.
Nice.
And so, that's our long-term projects. And we also have short-term projects where we're doing conferences, we're doing analog astronaut missions.
Okay.
So just to go back to what I said before about our parabolic flight being canceled last summer and being pushed to this summer, we had only 6 days to improvise and build a whole new mission.
Yeah.
And it's very stressful. I'm sure you know that with the spacecraft, which
something doesn't work.
Christina put you on the spot earlier, so you'll talk about it.
Yeah, you're going to talk about that also.
We can talk about that after.
But we also had, an emergency, which was the cancellation of the postponing of our parabolic flight. But especially as lead, I have a crew that has to go in Calgary.
Yeah.
I can't justify spending $10,000 on this, so I need to have another
something,
mission.
of course.
Yes, and for it to have a purpose. And so we ended up doing an analog astronaut mission of emergency wilderness survival training and first aid in an emergency situation.
Okay.
Which is one of the big things that we're also trying to do with space health, because at the end of the day, you have remote communities, but you have space as well. Space is an extreme environment.
Yes.
So if we understand a little bit medicine and how to apply first aids, how to apply basic medical emergency assistance in extreme situations, in extreme environments, then you can probably apply it to space.
Yeah.
And so we did that. We went in the forest, we went in the wild, and we did a full day of training. And we also went, 3 of our members, including myself, did a cave training, so speleology.
Ooh.
So we did some research about caves, and then we did training in caves. And so we went 6 hours under a mountain in like a system of caves, and it was really incredible. If you're interested in doing that, join Space Health.
The hook. There's the hook.
There's the hook.
Which also, that also brings those. So what kind of people can join Space Health?
Yes. Sorry, I went
The first question I was asked,
That was, yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of, with the projects, I guess you can kind of say you need people from every type of, industry, in the sense, like, of course, people that are maybe in medicine, of course. Not that Concordia doesn't have a med school, but like you have students that are in biology, stuff like that. So who would be willing to join, or who would you want to join and stuff like that?
Yes. So I think Space Health, we have so many different programs and specialties within our members and within our past members and alumni as well. We don't really have a specific set of skills. Well, obviously, we need skills for projects. Yeah. But when I'm recruiting members, I'm not looking for skills from members. I'm actually looking for more behavioral aspects and components.
So like everyone in the team is really looking at like what can you bring, but not like what are your skill set, what are you good at,
exactly.
how well you work in a team.
The biggest thing, and the biggest thing that we're looking for is that you need one to be hardworking. It's something that, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication. Hours. Yeah, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of passion. And by hardworking, I don't mean that you have to be one of the crazy people like us that are working like at some point, like 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. I have some incredible members that are only working, 5 hours, 4 hours, and sometimes they take a break, but they're still, very valuable members of the team.
Of course, yeah.
So you need to have dedication. You need to be there when you say you're going to be there. But above all, we need members that are going to take initiative. We have huge projects. A lot of my members and especially alumni were PhD students, master students, graduate students.
So it's not only for undergraduates?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
Right now we have a lot of undergraduate students, but before that, majority of our students were actually shifted to graduate students.
Interesting.
We also, you work with doctors, you work with engineers, you work with a lot of specialists. So taking initiative is very important because at the end of the day, it's something that is new. It's new for everybody. As the leads, we have to teach ourselves before we can teach our students. It's not something that we received from previous generation of Space Concordia members. We're doing this for the first time.
3 years, you said, right?
Yes, 3 years. We're doing this for the first time, but we also are learning at the same time as the actual specialists in the industry are learning. So you need initiative. You need to be able to ask yourselves questions. How can I do this? Instead of waiting for people to tell you what to do.
Okay.
That's the main thing that we're looking for members. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Of course, be passionate. If you have skill sets, it's amazing. I'm gonna love you if you have skill sets.
It's like additives.
Yes,
kind of
it's
thing,
additives.
yeah.
But if you don't, you can be complete newbie. You can be first year student, not have any knowledge, or you can be a fifth year student and not have any practical knowledge.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, there's no shame in that. And learn from ground zero with us. There's no problem with that. You just have to be willing to learn. That's it.
I agree.
Now we want to put him on the spot, and I want to hear what happened. I really,
on that.
yeah, I want to hear this too. It happens to everybody, I'm sure. Like,
So, are you talking about what Christina was relating to 30
that,
minutes
yes.
ago, or is there a specific question
I mean,
you're trying to refer to?
start with whichever one, but you're gonna go through both. Or,
Well,
go through all.
I think I answered the question
Yes.
you just asked. So,
I guess that's the.
I guess it's a very humble story of pretty much. So, our deadline basically for the project CCP, there were multiple batches. Batches just means it's gonna be sent to outer space in different timelines, basically. So
Okay.
batch 1 was during the summer,
Okay.
which was just around like June, July, something around that time. So basically, that was the first teams are able to create the CubeSats properly and like tested it. So basically, you're given certain requirements that you have to fit into your design, and that's basically kind of like taking an exam. They give you like constraints. You basically use all those variables and make whatever, or find the solution, basically your own solution. So that was batch 1. Batch 2 was originally our timeline. So basically batch 2 was around October 2nd, actually. That was like the first month, right into the first month of the semester. So basically we originally had that deadline, and then a lot of the teams that were in batch 2 were not able to finish at that point. So we got an extension for like a month and a half, which was very, very needed because it was too much work to be done in such little amount of time. So at some point it was around mid-November, and we had like a couple of weeks left. And so it was like the assembly team, we had created everything, the structural parts, the electrical parts were all done. The software was still being like fixed, but it was still being updated, but it wasn't as necessary as having the actual tangible parts completed. So we spent like 2 weeks assembling the whole CubeSat. It was pretty much the whole team. It was me, the mechanical lead, the project manager, Tim, who was just here, the electrical lead, and the systems lead. Basically, we were the team, and there was another member sometimes who would join, but we were the team that was supposed to assemble the whole CubeSat together. And this was the first time that we actually had to assemble the CubeSat, including all the harnessing, which is like the wires, all the electrical parts. Because before we actually are to assemble anything or to like test anything, we do a test CubeSat. So it's called the STM. It's called the structural thermal model. Okay. Basically, you test the CubeSat thermally and through mechanically, just exerting we do like vibration tests to see if it can withstand. Luckily, the vibration test we did actually gave us hope that the structure actually worked really well. And so basically, we had an idea of how to assemble it based on just the structural parts, which is a lot easier than when you do the final assembly, which is the structural parts with the electrical components and all the wires. There's a lot of it's very tiny, so there's a lot of spacing issues that you have to deal with that we actually ran into a lot of problems. And so basically for the last 2 weeks of the project, we worked until like 4 a.m. every night.
So no sleep.
Yeah, I guess so. We would go like 4 a.m.
No studying. No schoolwork.
The thing is, like, you kind of have to. It's a lot of time management. So you have to decide what's worth your time.
Your priorities.
What's your priority? School at that time was not my priority. I did not go to classes.
New students don't listen to that right away. Just priorities. Yeah. But anyways,
you decide what's more important to you. But in my opinion, it was just working on the spacecraft. I think practical knowledge is just more important than theoretical knowledge. So
you end up using that way more in your career anyways in the future.
There's a saying in Space Concordia, which we like to say to tell our inaugural members. New members, you don't graduate from Concordia University, you graduate from Space Concordia.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at some point, it was the last 2 weeks, spent like 4 hours until 4 a.m. working. And, it's repetitive, but it's very straining on you. So at some point, you can make a lot of mistakes really easily.
Yeah.
So at some point, one of those nights, we were assembling. So the 3 cubes, one of the cubes is the electrical cube, which is probably the most difficult to assemble and probably the most dangerous because we have batteries, they're lithium ions, so if they explode,
no bueno.
So basically we assemble it, no bueno, exactly. So you build it in a clean room because you don't want to have any particulates, any dust on your satellite.
Do we have one of those at Concordia?
We built it ourselves,
in the
actually.
Space Lab.
Oh, yeah.
Where is this?
Space lab or the clean
room?
It's in the H965 hall building.
Hall building, ninth floor. We have a space lab, and so all of Space Concordia can work there.
Okay. It's not in the basement like some other societies.
Well, we actually have the cage for rocketry because the rocket's like 40 feet long. So
I don't think you can bring that all the way up to ninth floor hall.
It'd be a little difficult.
Go up the stairs with it. It seems like a good idea.
Exactly.
Escalators.
Oh God.
But yeah, so where was I in this story? I'm a little lost. So yeah, we were assembling the electrical unit, CubeSat, and at some point we were putting together the batteries, and we had to attach them to the PCB that was on top of the batteries. Again, this is our first time, and I made a drastic mistake of shorting the batteries on the PCB, which means that I broke critical components or requirements that were necessary to actually have a flight. So I shorted the components on the PCB. I'm sorry, guys, but it happened.
Guys,
I was shaking. I was shaking.
I'm so sorry.
But which gave us a lot of valuable lessons because I kind of knew I did not like how this is assembled. I know for a fact I'm going to change it for the next satellite we work on. So I shorted the thing around like I don't know. It was late some night. I lost a lot of I guess not pride, but it brought me down in a sense. Like, it affects you.
Those
Like
types of things kind of like, it feels like you put the blame on yourself when it's not necessarily always on yourself too. Like you are in a team too, and I know that you're probably like, this guys, but like it is a learning lesson too, for sure, for everyone. Not just you, but for the whole team.
The thing is, it was not just shorted once; it was shorted like 3 times. So
You did it?
no, it wasn't just me, but it was other members. But I was the first one to do it. So basically, that was like the initial one was the opening concert. Exactly, the initial one was probably what created like the which was what I guess destroyed the potential of sending it in batch 2. Luckily, we learned a lot from that, and we did some documentation for other Space Concordia members to actually understand that hopefully you don't do the same mistake.
Yeah.
But other schools that were working on CCP were actually not able to build their satellite properly. It didn't fit the requirements that they were given. So our launch provider, which is the company that gives us it's called the Nanorax. It's called Nanorax. It's give us a CubeSat deployer. It's basically what you put into the CubeSat. You have to test fit it, make sure it fits like really well. This is what goes into the rocket. Then the rocket goes to the ISS, spends like 2 months there, and then it just deploys from the actual deployer. So yeah, that was what Christina was relating.
Called you out on directly.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm
ruthless.
It's a good lesson to talk about, and it humbles you. So
yeah, but again, you have to take those types of situations. Like, you can't look at a glass half empty. You'd be like, what if this would have happened, to someone else, to other people? Like, this is something you learn from, like, okay, for the next time, I'm not going to do it this way. We'll like adapt as a team and do that. So you just don't tear yourself down.
I'm actually like, it's a good story to tell. So, but that could have been very bad, because if I shorted for too long, it would have actually caught on fire, especially in the clean room. It's like a very small room, and if you catch it on fire, it basically destroys the whole clean room. The whole idea of what the clean room does.
Everything you put in.
Exactly, the whole CubeSat.
Potentially the building.
The building.
Yeah, ninth floor too. You're evacuating the ninth floor.
The windows, you can't jump out the windows.
Stairs straight down.
So yeah. It was a good story. It was fun, but
it was fun.
It was honestly very thrilling. My heart was really beating. You felt alive, very much so. But I wouldn't do it again, because
cliff diving. You're like, I felt alive.
I know exactly, but I know it's just a little too stressful, because there could be like complications, like legally, and just you don't really want to want that to happen in any sense. So, yeah, but luckily we learn from our mistakes. And we actually know what not to do now. So yeah.
I do want to point out as well, because I know, John, we put you and Spacecraft Division on the spot, but this is something that, as sad as it is, it's part of the process. So, all of our divisions have had issues. All of our divisions and other student teams have this kind of things happening. So, it's something that is normal. And so we actually do have very, very strict safety guidelines within Space Concordia. So, if something had happened, we did have guidelines to follow.
It's not like a free-for-all for anyone.
Don't just jump from the window. But
no jumping from a window.
But I think the biggest mistakes are the ones you learn from the most.
Very much so.
Yes.
So there's always like a positive aspect to
Yes, and it's a very big reminder as well that, we're still students.
Mm-hmm. Students, we make humans, everything. You guys
absolutely.
are just working on projects out of your free time too. You're learning it's a learning opportunity for everyone who's part of the society.
Yeah.
And with learning comes mistakes, comes failures, comes things like that. And it's just part of it, know?
And it's hard. It's space engineering. It's space medicine. It's not something that is easy. So it's part of the process.
Yeah, it is. But for now, we actually have batch 3, because other teams weren't able to make it. The launch provider and the CSA decided to give us another timeline. So we have until March 13th to finish the satellite and fix it in any way possible. And then we're supposed to go to Florida. I don't know exactly when. I think it's like June or something. And we go see a Falcon 9 SpaceX rocket with our CubeSat launched to space.
That's rewarding for sure.
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to ask too. Then what you guys have coming up, you have that coming up, I'm sure. Anything else that maybe students can also get involved in?
So yeah, right after the project's over, we get another project, is the next iteration, next satellite. So it's another project with the CSA. It's actually, we did a proposal, and basically we are waiting until March to see if we got approved. If we get approved, we'll be working on the project. Okay. Which is basically another CCP. It's just you work on another satellite. We give them certain payloads. If they approve it, they're like, yeah, you can start work. They give us a grant, basically. Okay. Which is basically the limit of how much we can use. But obviously we can get sponsorships. But their grant is very charitable enough for us to make some mistakes and, have
How much is it?
I don't know if I'm allowed.
Where are the funds?
I don't know if I'm allowed, but it's not going to space health if you're thinking.
She's like, can I have some for our division?
I guess I think that CCP is a little bit more open about it. So the amount that was given was around like $200,000.
Wow. So you guys really have a lot to work with and a lot to. I'm sure obviously everything you guys are doing is also expensive in general.
Oh, very much so.
If you want to reach space, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Nice.
It's fun. But the thing is, it's all student-led. So you give that amount of money to students. It's it can go wrong in some ways, but it can go right in some ways, you know?
I mean, I feel like I shouldn't necessarily ask this, but like, do you trust everyone on your team with the funding and everything? Like, I feel like it's something that like you have to be careful with a team. That's what I asked when you like who can join. How do you pick out certain people, especially when it comes to like you are handling a lot of money?
Yeah, it is. So currently, I have a lot of faith in the current VP Finance, who's actually over there, but he left. He actually is very trustworthy, and he's very open about
What's being used.
What's being used. He's trying to be very open source about it and making sure that there's no
kind of fair for everyone too.
Yeah, exactly. Making sure that the money is distributed properly to all the space divisions, and making sure it's not just like one division that has all the money.
Okay.
But obviously, I think for finance purposes, it should be a little bit more. A lot more rigor for select because there's been problems in the past that I've heard about. I don't really know.
10 years or 15 years in a society, like I'm sure there's things that go right, wrong.
Exactly. So
money goes somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's getting a lot better now, especially like being able to like use software and having just a little bit more open source about it is why I trust the process a lot more now than what's happened in previous years.
Does Adam is our VP Finance in Space Concordia, but he's also a Spacecraft member. So is Adam the one?
Spacecraft lead.
Spacecraft, yeah, he's one of the leads.
You forget a lot of things.
Is he the one that handles the finances of Spacecraft as well, or do you have another person?
No, that's the project managers.
That's the project.
Project managers take care of the money from the grant from CSA, but Adam is the one taking care of like all the spacecraft, Space Concordia.
Project managers, by the way. So our divisions, we have Rocketry, Satellite, Robotics, and Space Health. Rocketry, Space Health, and Robotics, we have one lead of the division. Satellite has 3. We call them project managers. So that's what that's referring to PM. Okay. You have 3, right?
Yeah, we have 3.
I guess for us, I handle the finances, so I trust myself.
Okay, really? She's like, I trust myself.
but I work with, now she graduated, but I used to have a finance officer that used to help me with this. So I'm going to be recruiting a new one very soon. But we also work very closely with the VP Finance of Space Concordia. So, like, all in all, we're very surrounded. So if you're going to make a mistake when it comes to finance, it's not going to be easy to make a mistake. So you're very well surrounded. And at the end of the day, even if you're the person that makes the call for the finance, you still ask your team. You ask your team leads their opinion. Yeah, you always ask your teams, where do they think we should invest in? And so at the end of the day, it's very hard to make mistakes if you have faith in your team.
We have one more question for you guys. So for like our viewers and for students, what kind of advice can you give them for time management? Just because I know you guys put a lot of time into your projects. So how do you choose like your priorities and like studying?
It's funny because right before we came here, John and I were talking about this, and I told him like the best advice I can give you is to just not do what Rym is doing.
Not do what you're doing.
Not do what I'm doing.
You're doing a lot.
I am. So I'll be fully honest because I know students are going to be listening to this, and I don't want them to think that we're here, we're doing crazy things, and we're not struggling. We are. Yeah. So I'll be fully open with this. Last year, in the past 2 years, I've been struggling a lot with time management, and by that I mean that I completely neglected everything in my life that wasn't just work and school and research. Space Concordia is a lot. Yeah. I easily do minimum 40 hours a week before, but I also am involved in 7 other
a lot of other
organizations, and Space Concordia is the only student one that I'm into. So the others, they're even bigger. And then you have research, you have university, because at the end of the day, we're all students before anything else. So I guess time management and mental health is one of the biggest things that you should always avoid neglecting. So if I have one advice is to always do some self-assessment of how you're doing. After some
check-ins kind of thing.
Some check-ins with yourself, hey, how are you doing? Is it a bit too much? And if it is, then set strong boundaries. Don't be afraid. If you're a member and you have a lead in your team, don't be afraid to tell them, hey, I feel like I'm burning out. I need to slow down.
Have people around.
Can we spread
Very
this
easy
goal?
to burn out.
It's extremely easy to burn out.
You guys both saying 40 hours a week, like
Minimum.
It's a lot of time and effort, especially if you're trying to be full time in university.
Yes.
Yeah.
And working.
And working too for a lot of people too. So it's, how do you balance the time? Like I think it's important to have a good network also around you and like a good team to, when you're down, help balance and vice versa.
So biggest advice, if you're a member and you have a lead, then talk to your lead and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Like set strong boundaries, tell them, hey, it's a bit too much right now for me. I'd like to slow down. Like I'd like to spread my tasks with other people. If you're a lead, then it's a bit harder because, you have a lot of responsibilities with your team.
Yeah.
And majority of us, we have external deadlines. So, we can't miss it. If job doesn't get done by us, it just doesn't get done.
Yeah.
So it's a bit harder, but it's not impossible. And that's the biggest advice that I'd give anybody that's a lead of any team. Don't be afraid to delegate tasks and don't be afraid to slow down. And, if you really, really, really do everything that you can to meet a deadline, if you delegate tasks, if you talk with your team, if you have a great organization, if you work hard and it's still too much for you and you end up missing a deadline, then miss the deadline and figure it out after it. But don't sacrifice your health for this.
It's good advice. What about you?
Yeah, it's definitely not worth sacrificing yourself to the project. You have to realize it's just, it's an ambitious project, but it's not like
a project in the
exactly
end.
like your life matters more than the project itself, So time management. That's a great question because it all comes down to priorities. Honestly, to me, relationships are the number one priority in life. In general, like projects are give you some sort of purpose, but relationships always need to be fortified or just make sure that you're constantly, especially for the people that you're close to, make sure that you just check in on them. You don't lose. You just don't lose that bond, So that was something I struggled a lot with last semester. I remember Rym, it was the only thing on my mind was really getting outputting this CubeSat, get it done, Especially I had 5 classes, five classes, and I had to work as well. But luckily, work was at school. I was a TA, so luckily, everything was at the same location, so I didn't have to keep traveling.
Yeah.
That's just me being able to be fortunate enough to do that, and it wasn't too many hours per week as well.
It's reasonable, yeah.
So, it's really choosing the priority. So I remember it was really hard for me I live with my brother, and I used to see him all the time, and I would literally see him once a week because I would come in at 1 o'clock pretty much every morning, except for that 2 weeks of 4 a.m., 6 a.m. The longest we stayed there was till 7 a.m.
In the whole ninth. Oh God. Yeah.
7
the
a.m.
one place you don't kind of want to stay. It's the whole ninth floor.
It's so hot in there, and you just sweat. It's disgusting, honestly. But you choose your priorities. So my priority is relationships, and now this semester I'm working more towards that. I'm actually definitely putting less hours into space, but I'm there pretty much every day. But I do my schoolwork and just socialize. So I just prioritize the CubeSat and classes just based on my own discipline throughout the years. I'm a 5th year, so. My first couple of years, I was more academically inclined. I would just work more on my classes. Yeah. So I kind of understood the process of how to study.
Yeah.
So
it's very individual too, right?
Exactly.
You might work differently than you or me or Emily.
Mm-hmm. So from those couple of years of learning, I understood, it's not the best idea to cram, but I understood that I can actually, last semester, I crammed the last 3 weeks, everything, and fortunately, I was able to do well, but obviously, it's
ride that curve.
it's understanding where your strengths and weaknesses are, and understanding I've done this before. I kind of understand that to me, when you study, I just study mostly the concepts, so I don't just look at all the problems that I have to study. So I'm just if I understand the concept, I'm not going to study this.
Yeah,
it's really focusing properly on what you really don't know. So in that case, just especially, and I have other extracurricular activities I want to do, and again, I was like imbalanced in that sense. I was mostly doing CubeSat, but now I'm working on the CubeSat, but now I'm like, I can do a little bit more physical activity. I remember I wasn't doing as much, I wasn't working out as much as I usually do, but now I'm definitely trying to focus more on that, just socializing and
kind of yourself.
It's hard. It's honestly, for me, I just understood how to become more disciplined and like understanding what's useless to do. Like honestly, I used to, and I still sometimes do, but like I just look at my phone and just do nothing. I just completely got rid of social media on my phone because it was honestly a waste of my time. I would look at it and I'd be like, I'm scrolling. I was like, I'm getting nothing out of this.
TikTok, an hour goes by.
Exactly.
Like, oh,
luckily, I never downloaded TikTok.
Yeah, no, good, because I got it right like at the pandemic, and worst mistake.
Yeah.
Worst mistake.
Still happen.
But
you won't have any time to do TikTok anymore.
No time for anything else.
But YouTube Shorts got me. YouTube Shorts
are kind of good.
It's the exact same thing as TikTok.
Really yeah.
YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels are
Reels are TikToks. Just for
everything
context.
they're all the same. It's just the same. It's just super addictive. But yeah, understanding like what is more essential to you? Is it mindlessly scrolling, or is it like physically being active, mentally being active? And
so I guess for students too, it's just to kind of balance your time with that.
Yeah,
you know?
it's very
learning yourself.
Yeah, it's very individualistic, especially, and like also like Rym said, is being there were some times where I think towards the end of the project I had more time for myself, and during the project I didn't have a lot of time to self-reflect, but at some point after the project ended, I was like, oh, I have a little bit more time. I kind of noticed some things I was lacking in. I was like, okay, started like spending like a couple nights. I would just like think to myself, like, what can I do better in this area of my life? I had a little bit more time, and maybe like, I guess carving out a little bit of time per week, be like,
your me time.
Exactly. Me time. Like, what can I do better? What did I like doing? Do I want to do this more? Blah, blah, blah. So it's really understanding what you enjoy doing.
So I guess to like sum it up in some ways, to kind of, I think the one thing is you have to understand yourself. And again, that happens with, if you're just starting university or there's a lot of new things happening, you just got to kind of feel yourself out, see how you study. You might not study, like you understand concepts, but maybe, I don't understand concepts. So it's like understanding how you are. And I think from there, you'll learn, you'll adapt, and then you can prioritize your time with that, right?
And learn to speak up for yourself.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing that stops people from really taking care of themselves is that sometimes they realize like, hey, I'm burning out. I need to slow down. But they have responsibilities.
Yeah.
They have...
Like, I can't do this because I have a team to be working with.
Like, I'm going to let them down. I can't do that. But at the end of the day, if you're completely burnt out, if you're completely exhausted, you're going to end up letting down your team, but you're letting down yourself.
Yeah, you're helping us with our competition. It's going to happen in March.
Announcements to come soon. Announcements to come soon, guys.
John answered the question of like, what do you have coming up? But I didn't yet. So
true.
But yeah, I was going to say, I remember you telling us like, I need a break from this, and I'll come back after.
You need
this
to sometimes. You're going to be your biggest advocate. You're not going to do anything else, like unless you tell yourself like, I need a time. I need a little moment.
And like, sometimes it's hard to like accept it as well. Like there's a little bit of ego that comes into play. And I think people are scared of the word ego, but they shouldn't be. Everybody has an ego.
No, of course. But it doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing. Like sometimes like the first time I did bad in a class, I was like, oh God. And I'm like, it's like I'm beating myself up for it almost. And it's like, but you know what? It happens to everybody. Like you have to just learn from that and grow.
Exactly. And I think we tend to compare ourselves to each other because we have like Space Concordia, at some points we're 300 students, at some point we're like 200 students. Like we're a lot of students in Space Concordia. We have a lot of alumni. We have some brilliant people with us. And especially if you look at the top of Space Concordia, you have hardworking people that are constantly working. And so I think there's this, we compare each other. We compare ourselves to each other, and especially to people in the industry. And you have these high achieving people that are always seem like they're doing so much and still are okay. And I think that's the big mistake of, okay, if they can all do it, why can I? Like, I have to just push and do it.
Don't compare yourself to people.
Don't.
Yeah.
There was the time during last semester, actually, I was just burning out completely, and we still had like a month to go. At some point, actually, what's very nice about the team is that when you realize it, a lot of people are understanding. Like if you just like start breaking down in front of them, people are gonna just be willing to listen to you. So at some point, I was really burning out. And what's good about the project management team at Spacecraft is that they actually do leads checkups. So it was supposed to be every month, but since we were very busy, they kind of understood that. So they're trying to do that every month, where they just have a conversation with you for 1 hour, just to see like how you're doing. Can you handle all the workload? Mm-hmm. And at some point, I remember I was just working on it was like 12 hours straight, and I was just really burnt out. It helps that a lot of people are near you, because like it's not a competition, but like it kind of drives you to like keep working on something when you see other people that you really respect work on something. And I remember I was just burning out, and one of the project managers came up to me, and I was like just had my headphones in, but I was in a bad mood, and he just brought me to the side. He's like, just stop doing whatever you're doing, just stop. It's okay, you don't have to do it. I literally we had a heart-to-heart for like 2 hours. I cried. It was the first time I cried in like a long time, and it honestly felt so good. It felt so good. It's relieving almost. It felt really good, and I have much respect to him. Shout out Ismail. But yeah, I was very, very happy that he chose to dedicate a couple hours and of his time to just understand what I was going through, especially when I had something with family. But
everyone goes through a lot of different things in their lives, right? So you don't know what someone's going through, and whether it's school, family, friends, social, anything. I think that to just be understanding with the people around you, and like you said, don't compare yourself. If someone's doing super well, they might not be at 100% mental health. I think there's a lot of aspects to consider, but I think that the advice you guys have both given has been really good. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap things up a little bit. But thank you, Rym. Thank you, Jonathan, and Christina, and William. You guys, honestly, the conversation was super interesting. I hope that whoever listens to this can really get some more insight on Space Concordia, their divisions, and what they have to offer, of course. I guess they can kind of see your like social medias and stuff to kind of see what you guys are up to also. I guess Instagram, your websites too. You have a website?
Yeah, if you want to let us know.
Yes.
Yeah, how would you advertise? Like, pitch, 5-second pitch. Go.
Okay.
You go.
Well, first of all, if you want to actually come talk to us, we're going to be at the SEDS Canadian Conference next weekend. So come see us, come ask questions. We also have a few events coming up. So the Space Health Division and the Mars Society of Canada have come together to create the very first Canadian Space Exploration Conference. We had the first iteration in November 2022, which was brilliant success. We had people from 6 countries coming over. Wow. It's at Concordia. We're going to do it again this year. So if you want to get to know us, come to the conference. And like the girl said, we're going to make an announcement about a case competition coming up between Space Health and Women in Engineering.
A really great combination of people, might I add. And I think it's going to be super, super fun and very different compared to what a lot of engineering students only do. So hopefully you guys will be interested once we start announcing all of that. So please pay attention to our social medias as well. Women in Engineering, we have our Instagram, our Facebook, and everything. Jonathan, how do you, where do they check your division?
I guess you can always go on spaceconcordia.ca. You can see all divisions, but if you want to get more personal access, you can go on Instagram. There's Spacecraft.
So we have a Space Concordia account. And then every single division also has their own account. So if you have any question about spacecraft, about rocketry, that wasn't here today. So if you have questions for them, feel free to reach out to them or to any of us. Robotics, Space Health, we all have our accounts. So just don't hesitate to ask questions. Even if you're not sure, if we can help you in any way to make you more sure, then reach out.
Yeah, so us too, again, anything, whether Christina was also part of both, so you can message all of us on our Instagrams or social medias and anything. And we'd like to, again, thank the Fourth Space for allowing us to film this podcast over here. Great space, they always have events here. Check out their Instagram, their websites, they always have everything as well. And we hope to see you guys in the next episode of The Iron Ring.
And thank you to the both of you for having us.
Thank you very much, it was fun. Great conversation.
If you have an idea for a podcast, please let us know. You can contact us by email at info.4@concordia.ca or find us on social media at CU Fourth Space. All social media is managed by Jacqueline Wexler. This episode of the Fourth Space podcast is hosted by me, Maximus Delmar, and produced by Anna Voklavek and Douglas Moffat. Editing by myself, Douglas Moffat, and Chanel Lees Marshall. Additional thanks to Supercontinent for providing our theme music. Thanks for listening.